The Yondaime Hokage stared at his newly reconstructed village with an awe he did not show on his face. He truly had not expected for the old village to be duplicated so perfectly after its destruction. His village had been ravaged by fire and forest, by overwhelming force. But now it was as if nothing had happened to Kumogakure, as if the attack by the Akatsuki was but a bad memory. He turned to Uzumaki Naruto, who looked at him inquiringly. "My construction is to your satisfaction, I believe, Hokage?" he asked politely, as if he did things like this on a daily basis. The Hokage was startled out of his wonderings, and replied hastily. Yes, it is excellent. It appears Kumogakure owes you a great debt, Uzumaki Naruto. For stopping the Akatsuki onslaught and for reconstructing our home, we owe you much, admitted the Hokage, who truly did not like being in the debt of a clearly more powerful village such as Konoha. Naruto sensed the man's feelings, and graciously let him off the hook. No det, Raikage. All I request of you is that you accede to Konoha's request to form a response force. The need for which you have already seen to be necessary. And I do not need to explain politics to a sly old fox like you, now do I? The Hokage gave a barking kind of laugh and Naruto grinned as the Hokage slapped him on the back in a comradely fashion. Certainly not, young man, at this Naruto felt Kurama's amusement. And I have important news. Takigakure has allied with Akatsuki completely, and that makes alliance with Konoha all the more important. Tell Tsunade that we will have to meet soon with Mizukage to form a triumvirate alliance. Naruto inclined his head in acquiescence. As they walked on, they came across Sasuke, who was sparring with Yujito. Naruto sighed as Sasuke redoubled his efforts, trying to win a kenjutsu match against an experienced jounin. Just tell the brat who you are, Hashirama. At least it will stop the runt from trying to think he can match you in even another 100 years, said Kurama in a bored voice. Naruto had considered the idea, but he could not let that secret go around too much. The fewer the people who knew, the better. He winced as Yujito skillfully disarmed Sasuke. The blast of anger from Sasuke washed over him, and he could see the Uchiha about to reveal the Mangekyo Sharingan. With barely a whisper, he appeared between the contestants, turning to Yujito. Hello, Yujito-san, he said cheerfully. Sasuke seemed to slump at his appearance and sheathed his sword tiredly. Yujito looked at him with a nonplussed expression. Yes. I need to borrow Sasuke for a minute. Sorry to interrupt your practice, he said, beckoning for Sasuke to join him. He waved to Yujito and the Hokage and walked on with Sasuke. The Uchiha sullenly stared ahead as they walked, and Naruto immersed himself in Sasuke's emotions. What bothers you now, Sasuke? He asked calmly. He could guess, but he preferred to hear it directly from Sasuke. Sasuke's face cycled through a variety of emotions, finally settling on one of open desperation. I need to get stronger, he whispered desperately. Naruto could actually feel the burning desperation in Sasuke, the unnatural craving for power. Sasuke, it seemed, was unable to let go of that one desire, something that he had carried over from before. Looking at Sasuke's pained expression and feeling his torrential desire for more strength, Naruto chose to believe that Sasuke would not abuse his strength. Compassion rose in him like a tidal wave for the young boy who had been irreparably changed by his younger days' happenings. I am the leader of the Senju clan, though I know much about Sharingan, I cannot teach him of it. Naruto flared his senses, reaching as deep as he could into Sasuke's emotions. Why do you want power? He asked curiously, looking directly into Sasuke's eyes. The young Uchiha stared right back for a few moments, then looked down with an expression of shame. I just do. I want to match my Nai-san and you. I want to be able to stand alongside you and not feel inferior anymore. When you fought them yesterday, all I could do was stand and gape. I am a true-blooded Uchiha, not some stupid clanless nuke-nin, said Sasuke passionately. Naruto only closed his eyes and opened them again, feeling Sasuke's emotions verify the veracity of his claims. I can help. Not in the way you think, but I can help, he said, a seed of an idea being born in his head. Wait until we return to Konoha, Sasuke. We will have to change a few plans again. But if you want to learn how to truly master your eyes, there is only one person who can teach you how. Leaving a stupefied Sasuke behind, he strode onwards thinking how to incorporate this new idea into his existing plans. Traders are such a good breed, are they not, Itachi? Especially skilled traders, said Toby happily, nudging at a figure shackled to the ghetto statue. You should have told me of this, said Itachi with only a slight hint of anger as he saw what the Akatsuki had done behind his back. He stood in front of the ghetto statue with Pain and the impostor, concealing his utter rage with enormous effort. God only knew how this would affect Naruto. He knew all too well how it felt to have those you loved ripped away from your grasp. Did you know that the Uzumaki are distantly related to the Senju? Asked Toby curiously as he moved to the prisoner shackled to the ghetto statue. He lightly ran his fingers over her flawless face, causing her to shake slightly in her unconscious state. Itachi just watched stoically, for once unable to decide. Senju and Uchiha, continued Toby musingly. Rikita's blood flowing in two lines, Yang and Yin chakra in their true splendor. When they are unified, the original power that birthed them emerges to an extent. How is this relevant? And I assume this entire situation was engineered for Uzumaki Naruto, questioned Itachi. He could never have anticipated for Toby to play them all so ruthlessly. Toby let out a short laugh as he turned to Itachi, but his hands went to the captive's hair and pulled it out of its bun. Itachi's hand shook slightly at this. Yes, Toby said humorlessly, as his gloved hands ripped the fuinjutsu tags that adorned her ears. That boy is potentially too dangerous to be left intact. Akatsuki is in no shape to neutralize him. So, we do two things at once. Break him mentally, and if that backfires we need to gain the strength to oppose him with no problems. Thus was this plan born, Uchiha Itachi. Why not use Uzumaki Kushina? Itachi asked in a disinterested voice. Toby chuckled lightly at this. Some Uzumaki are of purer blood than others, Itachi. As are some Uchiha, he said. The one Sharingan he revealed glowing malevolently as he faced Itachi. There was a shift in the air, causing them to turn and face the new arrival. Itachi's eyes widened in surprise at what he saw. The real Pain himself had appeared, his Rinnegan shining blue as he leant upon his aide Konan. You are here, good, said Toby in a businesslike voice. Pain and Konan slowly strode forward, coming towards the prisoner. Itachi's mind raced feverishly as his superior intellect tried to come up with viable solutions to the problem. Has she woken up yet? Asked Pain in an authoritative voice. Toby replied in the negative, both of them staring at the woman with contemplative eyes. Slowly, her eyes fluttered and shot open. Taking a few moments to absorb her situation, she laid her eyes on Itachi and then went on to observe her other captors. Welcome to Akatsuki, Uzumaki Mito, said Toby in an overly cheerful voice. Itachi's eyes shone red, ready to unleash Amaterasu upon him, but his mind was still caught in a painfully excruciating dilemma. I sacrificed my own family to keep Konoha safe. Can I sacrifice Mito-sama as well? If I blow my cover, I save her but condemn Konoha. If I leave her be, and she is killed, Konoha has its greatest informant still, but he shivered slightly. Naruto will never forgive me. I see you have noticed what holds your chakra back, said Toby, moving to stand in front of her. Itachi hissed softly as Toby pulled down the front of her robe, consciously suppressing his raging chakra. He dares to touch Senju Hashirama's wife. He thought with cold rage, his Sharingan morphing back and forth from its eternal state. Itachi could only stare indecisively as Toby revealed a shiny silver collar with engraved seals around Mito's neck, and an intricate black seal inscribed upon the slope of her left breast. Mito, how did you get this? These seals are Uzumaki clan secrets, drawn only by those of the Uzumaki blood. Those of pure Uzumaki blood. How is this possible? She asked calmly, paying no attention to her situation. Toby laughed morbidly, nodding to pain as a spiraling distortion swallowed him up. Itachi watched with growing indecision as Pain was brought face to face with Mito by Konan. He watched as Pain laid a hand directly on Mito's heart, causing her to flinch. Itachi saw 1,000 emotions in Mito's eyes as she looked straight at him. Before he could catch her in a Tsukuyami, Pain had already begun. With you returning to where you belong, Uzumaki Mito, peace will be assured, said Pain in his deep voice. Itachi could feel Pain's immense chakra in the cave, as the one who called himself Pain intoned, Gakido. Itachi's Sharingan now morphed into the Uchiha symbol, and he could only barely restrain himself from acting as Uzumaki Mito slumped. Itachi's highly developed Jujutsu could see Pain leeching even Mito-sama's entire chakra. He could see Pain's age disappearing as the old face of the real Pain was replaced by that of a youth. He could feel Pain burning with energy and vitality, feel him leeching the last of Mito-sama's chakra. Carelessly taking his palm off Mito's chest, Pain covered her and looked down at his hands with an expression of utmost satisfaction. Almost as if by an afterthought, he glanced down at Mito, who hung unconscious by her shackles, and her robes were restored completely. Banbutsu Sozo, Pain whispered, looking down at his mangled legs. Before Itachi's surprised eyes, life returned to the legs in a burst of white light. In place of Pain's weak and wounded legs were two healthy legs worthy of a wielder of the Rinnegan. He could see chakra running through them, as strong as it ran through Pain's upper body. I do not have her chakra anymore, but it was well spent. Even my own chakra's potency does not match hers. Pity I could not retain it, said Pain casually, looking at Itachi. Konan gasped as Pain disappeared with incredible speed and appeared upon his place on the ghetto statue. Itachi felt true concern as he took in the scene in front of him. Mito-sama was captured, he had no idea how, and Pain had used her chakra to heal himself. Pain was no longer crippled. Pain's enormous chakra began to saturate the cave completely, and the Akatsuki leader disappeared once more only to appear beside Itachi with a whisper of a sound. Itachi, said Pain, looking almost regretfully at the imprisoned Mito. It is your task to return her to Konoha. We have no further use for her. Make sure to leave her lying in front of the gates of Konoha. Itachi felt rage he had not felt for a long, long time. Pain had become even stronger, and now was not the time to pit his strength against the leader. But relief rushed through him as he observed Mito's chest rising and falling slightly. She was alive. And it was not yet time to act. Only his supreme control of his emotions stopped him from unleashing the full power of his Susanoo, something he did not intend to reveal for a long time. When the time comes, I myself will seal Toby and Pain into the endless dream of Tatsuka for what they have done today. He promised himself coldly. Akatsuki had taken the first steps to the real war now. He shuddered to think what would have happened if they had killed Mito, and at the same time wondered why they had let her go. I will, he assented. Pain nodded, and walked back to Konan, who was wearing an expression of utmost happiness at his recovery. Itachi picked Mito gently up and disappeared. Oba-san, why do you think Danzo is in the right? He is an abominable man. You agreeing with him openly undermines my rule as Hokage. I am sorry, but you may have caused irreparable damage to my standing, said Tsunade angrily, looking at her grandmother with narrowed eyes. It angered the busty Hokage all the more when Mito remained silent, examining her fingernails studiously. Tsunade cursed loudly and slammed her fist onto the table. The shards of the breaking table cut into Mito's face, causing her blood to flow. Still the woman said little. Tsunade couldn't contain herself anymore. Vaulting over the table, she kicked hard at Mito, and was beyond surprised when the kick sent the Uzumaki woman barreling into the wall. She stared hard at her grandmother. Never before had this happened. She turned when the doors to her office slammed open and Kakashi entered urgently. "It's all right, Kakashi. My grandmother must have been sleeping," she said, regretfully staring at the hole that contained Mito. Kakashi stared at the hole in the wall as well, and then looked back at the Hokage with a very serious expression. "I am sure she is, for we found Mito-sama unconscious in front of the east gate," said Kakashi with no sign of his trademark laziness. Tsunade's eyes grew wide at this. Her grandmother was right here. True, she was a little worse for wear, but she was right there embedded in the wall. "Impossible," said Tsunade flatly. "I just kicked Oba-san into the wall. True, it has not happened before. If she were a clone of any sorts, I would have sensed her." Kakashi sighed. "Nevertheless, there is someone in our healing division that looks like Mito-sama or is her. We should resolve this affair soon, Hokage-sama." Tsunade's expression firmed, and she appeared before the crumpled form of the woman she had kicked into the wall. "What happened to my father? If you are who you are, then you should know. Tell me," she asked in a deadly quiet voice. Mito got up slowly and threw herself at Tsunade with a snarl. A blur of moment later, Kakashi retracted the elbow he had buried in her abdomen and watched as Mito morphed into a weird white humanoid. Tsunade's face whitened considerably. "Oba-san," she whispered, and vanished with a shin. Kakashi too followed with a heavy heart. He had alerted Jiraiya-sama as well. It was best to get to the bottom of this affair before Naruto returned. He did not want to be at the receiving end of Naruto's anger. Or worse, his disappointment. A quarter hour later, he joined Jiraiya and Tsunade in the Hokage's healing chamber. "How can this be? How is it that we were deceived so completely? I noticed no difference. Did we, the elite ninjas of Konoha, get suckered by appearance and imitation?" said Jiraiya in a low voice of outrage, watching Uzumaki Mito lying supine on the bed. Shizune and Tsunade were feverishly looking through numerous stacks of books. Huge books. Kakashi just sat in his chair looking truly despaired. "Her chakra was suppressed and even her life force was sucked out of her body," said Shizune with outrage. Jiraiya snarled at this fact. No doubt this was Akatsuki. Shizune beckoned for them to approach further and pointed to the seal on Mito's chest. "That seal suppressed willpower, and this collar," she said, holding up a burnished metal collar, "suppressed her chakra to a large extent. I have no doubt she could have overcome both given more time, but what was done to her happened before she could mount a defense," she said with pure anger in her tone. Tsunade was saying nothing, only leafing frantically through various books. Kakashi's anger only increased as he began to see with his Sharingan the damage wrought to Mito's chakra network. In truth, her body was unable to generate any chakra. "She's dying, isn't she?" asked Jiraiya in a somber tone. Tsunade snarled out a denial and gathered medical chakra in her palms and slammed it onto Mito's barely rising chest. Kakashi and Jiraiya watched with sorrow as her repeated attempts failed. "Summon Naruto immediately. I don't care what happens to Konoha. Summon him now," shouted Tsunade as she began to mold medic chakra in complex ways to heal Mito. Shizune joined her in increasingly difficult attempts to save the Shodai's wife. Kakashi did not even wait for acknowledgement, simply disappearing to dispatch a message to Naruto. If anyone could heal Mito-sama, it was her husband, the greatest healer Konoha had ever seen. "I do not see the need for any alliance," Raikage said a council member stubbornly, making the Raikage want to pound the man into the ground. But it would not do for Kumo to lose its entire council to one of his tantrums. He leaned forward forcefully and said loudly, "Did you not see what happened to our village, fool?" he ground out. "It was due to this young man here that we even survived. How could you oppose what we are trying to do here?" Akatsuki is a real threat. What if this boy's nation has staged the entire incident? Said another member maliciously. Naruto laughed out loud at this ridiculousness. Stage the entire incident? What are you implying? That we cooperate with Akatsuki? He asked amusedly. The council member snarled. That is exactly what I am implying, you arrogant boy. Before Naruto could make any sort of coherent reply, a blast of golden light occurred in the middle of the room, causing everyone to jump in alarm. But Naruto sensed the arrival of 3 new chakras, and all of them were familiar. Shiranui Gunma stood with 2 other Konoha ninja, focusing only on Naruto. What is the meaning of this? Shouted the Raikage. But Gunma only walked solemnly to Naruto and handed him a scroll. With a horrible feeling in his gut, Naruto opened the scroll. The entire posse watched with bated breath at this abrupt turn of events. Naruto scanned the scroll once with a stone-cold face and stared at Sasuke, who stood behind him. We are going to Konoha, he said in a final voice. The obnoxious Council Jounin sneered, and Naruto turned towards him and met his eyes with his own. Moments later, the fool lay writhing on the ground when hit by a killer intent so purely malicious that it would probably stop a lesser ninja's heart. Ignoring the man, Naruto said, I apologize. We need to go to Konoha. Genma-san, can you manage to transport 2 of us with my father's technique? Gunma nodded gravely, and Naruto and a bewildered Sasuke stepped into the enclosed space between the 3 shinobi. Naruto inclined his head to the Raikage and signaled to Genma. With a flash of golden yellow light, they disappeared from Kumogakure. Naruto winced slightly as the disorientation from the Hiraishin hit him for just a moment. They were in Konoha's Hokage office, and it was relatively full. You may go, Genma. And thank you for your service, said Tsunade gravely. Genma bowed, and he and his 2 comrades disappeared. Naruto turned and said to Sasuke, This is a personal matter, and it does not concern you at the moment. Please leave. Sasuke looked mutinous for a moment, but nevertheless he left. Naruto took a deep breath and turned to those remaining in the room. He could feel the depth of the sorrow in Jiraiya, Shizune, Kakashi, and most of all Tsunade. Where is my wife? He asked them in an urgent voice. Tsunade looked steadily at the window, refusing to look at him. After a few tense moments, Kakashi said, In the room of observation. She has not yet regained consciousness, he said hesitantly. Naruto walked briskly towards the door, blowing it apart with a minor earth technique. Angry thoughts raced through his mind at the speed of light. How could this happen so fast? Where were we deceived? And how could they capture my wife? A Jounin moved to stop him at the hospital, but a branch sprouted out of the ground and whipped him far away. Tsunade cried for him to calm down, but he did not listen. The only thought running through his mind was that he had not made much of his second chance to be with his wife. He had not respected what was given to him. Again and again he chose duty and village over blood and family, and again he paid a dear price. And now my wife is dying, he thought to himself miserably. He could sense very faint traces of Mito's chakra in the room beyond him and just barged in. The sight of Mito lying there pale and helpless, with what little life force she had fading fast, brought tears to his eyes and raging guilt to his heart. He rushed towards her, taking her in his arms and extending his senses to such an extent that he was almost one with the nature around him. He quested for Mito's chakra, and he found nothing. Do not interfere, barked Jiraiya to the alarmed medic Nin, as he and Tsunade watched Naruto trying to heal his wife. Naruto made a complex seal sequence, melding chakra in impossible ways. Iryo ninjutsu, Kami no Fukatsu, he intoned, straightaway using one of his most powerful techniques of healing. Green chakra fountained around him in a nimbus of bright light as he sought to heal Mito. The light grew brighter as his desperation increased, causing those present to cover their eyes. He gathered every shred of chakra in his body and forced healing on his wife, but it was to no avail. He slammed his palms together and called forth 8 wooden pillars, his wife resting on a smooth wood platform in the middle. This time, the green glow could have well been seen everywhere in Konoha, for the entire building was filled with it. After a few minutes, the extremely bright light subsided, leaving Naruto in front of his motionless wife. Tsunade looked on in extreme sorrow as she saw the man in front of her yell out in anger, the short burst of chakra causing cracks to appear in the walls. For hours they saw Naruto use healing techniques beyond their imagination, the pain in their hearts increasing every time he failed to achieve his goal. Finally, Naruto knelt tiredly on the ground and his wood pillars dissipated. The platform did not, though, and Uzumaki Mito's beautiful form lay undisturbed and serene upon it. "I am useless," said Naruto with self-loathing. "Whoever did this to her broke the very center of her chakra network. My healing relies on the chakra of the recipient as support. She has no chakra to give." "None," he whispered, a single tear sliding down his eyes. Kakashi closed his eyes, and Jiraiya hung his head. Tsunade stood motionless at this unbelievable turn of events. Her family was falling like a pack of cards before she even knew it. "Pain," came the whisper. Naruto stood up with surprise and delight at the welcome sound of the voice, but his face fell horribly at what met his sight. The light was leaving Mito's eyes, which were now open, and they were fixed upon Naruto's watery forest green ones. "Pain is whole and imposter. Predapath traitor." Here her barely aware eyes seemed to sharpen and alighted upon Naruto, who was openly shedding tears of anguish. "Be careful, husband," she gasped out with difficulty. Naruto just held her hand, tears flowing continuously down his face. He thought this life had given him a chance, but that chance was taken away before he could even properly consider it. His wife was in the throes of death. The only woman he had loved in both lives was being taken away from him, and he could do nothing to stop it. Of what use was all the healing he could do when he could not even save the love of all his lives? Tsunade came to the other side and held Mito's left hand, also crying at the cruel farewell they had to bid. Mito's slender body arched, and she slumped spread-eagled on the wooden platform. As the life left his wife, Naruto felt as if his soul was being torn as well. "I love you, Hashirama," she whispered with her rasping breath. Naruto bowed his head, letting the grief and utter guilt swallow him whole. Tsunade was taking him away from his wife, and he did not stop her. When he had not stayed by her in life, what right did he have to stay by her in death? As anger, guilt, and sorrow rushed through him in terrible proportions, he felt his mind folding in on itself. Though it was unbecoming for a shinobi of his stature, he let the blackness take him, happy to be away from the pain of it all. When he came to, he was lying in a private ward in the hospital. He was alone. That was good. As he stared up at the ceiling, his eyes watered, and he controlled himself with an enormous effort. The pain of losing his wife so abruptly had not truly hit him yet. The pain of losing a second chance with her killed him inside. He tried to think. If he were just Hashirama, he would have been sad and moved on for the sake of the village. The village, he snorted. He was no longer just Hashirama to dedicate his entire life to Konoha. He was a reborn Hashirama and a new Naruto who wanted to live for himself and his loved ones. The loss hit him all over again, and he screamed. His chakra went loose again, and the hospital started shaking violently from the force of its release. The door banged open, and Tsunade came in frantically. "Calm down, Ajisen," said Tsunade, hugging him tightly. Naruto immediately stopped flaring his chakra at this contact, and disengaged himself. His emotional control was slipping rapidly, and barriers he did not know existed were being destroyed. Who was he? He gripped his head hard to avoid the crisis that brought to his soul. Who was Mito to him? Wife from past life, or a beautiful woman he was slowly growing to adore in this one. He shook his head. The barriers went back up once more, and his mind cleared. But he felt something in him change irrevocably as he turned to Jiraiya. All the joy in his voice was gone. It was dead. It was remarkable how a person could change so much in a matter of hours. "Who killed her?" he whispered. Jiraiya winced and began to draw seals of privacy all over the room. Tsunade only waited gravely as Jiraiya activated the seals with a single gesture and turned to Naruto with a hopeful face. "She is not dead," blurted Tsunade. Naruto turned to her with rage-filled eyes, causing her to step back slightly. In a deceptively calm voice, he asked, "I felt her life fading to nothingness, you stupid little girl. Do you claim to know more healing than me?" A small flash of anger ran across Tsunade's face, but was replaced by understanding immediately. She took Naruto's hand in hers and said softly, "The healing techniques you used were so powerful, Ajisen. They kept her alive when she should be dead. Reach out with your senses. Can you feel her faint life pulse? She is in the next room, after all." Naruto desperately closed his eyes, reaching deep into the sensory perception. Mito, Mito, Mito. There she was, like the flutter of a butterfly's wings. He could feel life and a faint chakra pulse in her. Relief ran through him so powerfully that he thought he would faint again. He got up and rushed out into his wife's ward, Tsunade and Jiraiya hot on his heels. It almost brought tears to his eyes again, the sight of his broken and unconscious Mito. He turned to Jiraiya and Tsunade and gestured firmly to the door. "Leave me with her. I need to see if I can fan the sparks of her small chakra into the raging fire it should be." He knew he was being abrupt with his friends, but this was the woman he loved. Finding the pure chakra of nature all around him, he reached out to Senjutsu. 2 hours later, Naruto came out of the room, causing Tsunade and Jiraiya to stand up frantically. Tsunade looked at him with a desperately anxious look, a look that literally begged him to answer. "She will not wake," said Naruto in a rough and tired voice. When Tsunade looked about to break down, he held up his hand. "I said she will not wake, not that she was dead. She is in a coma. Her chakra network was destroyed too completely, as was her chakra source. I merely connected her to the flow of nature chakra. Nature will feed and sustain her for now." Tsunade slowly opened the door to Mito's room and entered, gasping loudly. The bed was gone and trees filled the large ward everywhere. But in the center were 8 pillars that connected floor to ceiling, and in the middle lay Mito serenely. They could feel nature chakra in the room, running through the pillars and into Mito. "You made her a sage?" asked Jiraiya in a flabbergasted voice. Naruto shook his head in morbid amusement, which quickly gave way to solemnity. "No, that is impossible for anyone. In their unconscious state, ninjas with great and potent chakras have the ability to tap imperfectly into nature chakra. Sages can use this property to keep such people from dying, even with the gravest of injuries. It is something I discovered a long time ago." He trailed off. "Amazing," whispered Jiraiya. Tsunade nodded, once more sampling the rejuvenating purity of the chakra that sustained Mito. Naruto quietly ushered them out of the room and shut the door behind them. He slammed his palms together and trees thrust out of the ground to bar the entrance. He laid a palm on the trees and seals appeared on them, engraved into them permanently. "If only I knew the Hashirama," he thought wistfully. "Drop your blood onto them," he asked the duo. Tsunade and Jiraiya did so, and the seals disappeared. Naruto turned to them in satisfaction and said, "Now only the 3 of us can enter this room, Tsunade." "On to more important matters," he said with an authoritative voice, causing them to pay attention. "I can actually heal Mito completely," he said. Jiraiya and Tsunade's confusion was ignored as he continued. "But I am still not as strong as I was at the height of my power. I once had the ability to reconstruct a person from the ground up, even his chakra network itself. I need to train now like never before. Only when I am satisfied with my own strength will I attempt to heal Mito completely. Her safety is more important than my desires. Heal even chakra networks? Grow it back? Whispered Tsunade with round eyes. Her grandfather's might was often dismissed as a fairy tale, but this was too much. No one had even considered such a feat. The precision required would be stunning. Yes, I can do it. Now I need to know a few things, a few important things. Here his visage darkened. He turned to Jiraiya. I know you two have contact with Itachi. Did he communicate with you? Yes. Then tell me, what the hell was Itachi doing when my wife was being killed? Did he just watch? Naruto asked, feeling rage slowly bubble up. Why yes, said Jiraiya, causing Tsunade to close her eyes. His cover Naruto opened his eyes, and for a moment it was the slitted red eyes of Kyuubi that sat there. Damn his cover. I don't care about his cover. He should have rescued my wife, he shouted with anger, causing the hospital to shake again violently. Jiraiya looked alarmed and hurt at this baffling new personality of Naruto's. I will never forgive them. Was Pain the one who drained out Mito's chakra and broke her source? He asked in a voice of deadly control. Jiraiya nodded again, for once cursing Itachi's desire to do the right thing, and knowing in his heart of hearts that the Uchiha had once more proved to be the greatest ANBU operative they ever had. Naruto remained silent, gathering his thoughts and composure. I assume you can reopen channels of communications with Itachi? He asked Jiraiya, seemingly regaining calmness. Tsunade nodded. Tell him not to interfere when I come for Pain. But Konoha is not ready she began. Naruto cut her off with a single wave of his hand. Not Konoha me, he said firmly. Pain took my wife away from me with the sage's eyes. I believe he too has a female aide, doesn't he, Jiraiya? Asked Naruto coldly. Jiraiya nodded, seeing where Naruto was going. He often did not like such actions, but they were shinobi. They had to send certain messages to their enemies, and vengeance really had nothing to do with it. Conan, a former student of mine. My spies have confirmed that she aids Nagato, he said sadly. Naruto turned to Tsunade. You said you have my armor? He asked. Tsunade nodded wide-eyed at this. Naruto continued, oblivious to their reactions. Then I will have it back, for I might need it someday. I may have to attack IWA sometime in the future, take the fight directly to Pain. I need to train hard anyway. What better way to supplement that training with the occasional battle with the leader of the Akatsuki? He chuckled humorlessly. Jiraiya looked at him as if he were insane. You plan to track Pain himself? Do you have any idea of how hostile IWA is at the moment? And you say you plan to fight him eventually. Yes, but only if I can confirm Pain's presence there. Or else I will have to search the countries looking for him, said Naruto. Plans formed in his mind rapidly, and he somehow knew that this idea of his was the only alternative. The Council of Three will never agree, said Tsunade, speaking after a pause. Naruto smiled a chilling smile. Somehow it did not look right on his face. No matter, I am beyond their power, he said. I will get my wife back to health again, no matter how long it takes. We have the time for Mito, that much I have ensured for now. He announced with total determination. He was going to get his Mito back whether he was Hashirama or Naruto. She was a precious person irrespective of any identity crisis he had. The three sat in silence for a time, pondering the effect this new development would have on the future. Tsunade, I need to ask you for a huge favor, he said. Tsunade looked at him inquiringly. Naruto continued, feeling a modicum of calmness return. I will need your official permission to leave Konoha for an indefinite time, until I can find Pain. Mito said Pain was whole. I can assume therefore that Pain has become even stronger. It will be best if I can face him in a duel, he mused. Tsunade asked harshly as well. What if you do find him, what then? I have a plan. I will not go seeking him for now. I will only track him. When the time is right, I will face him, said Naruto. Here he smiled a wintry smile, and whispered. And then, I will extract from him the price of attacking my wife. He will know the consequences soon enough. Him and the Akatsuki. They will understand. He looked at Tsunade and got up to leave. Send my armor to my apartment. I may not use it, but it is an anchor to my past, he said, but stopped when Jiraiya announced firmly. I am coming with you as well. Kakashi will train Sasuke in Mangekyo Sharingan. But Minato would kill me 100 times over if I let his son walk into this kind of foolhardiness alone. Not even you cannot do everything by yourself, Hashirama. Only Rikido could do that. Take the pervert with you, and I approve of your hastily conceived plan. It is worthy of the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox. Came the voice of the Kyuubi. Naruto just acknowledged the voice and turned to Jiraiya. I will not risk my mother after all this, so you may accompany me. It will be good to have a companion in my travels, said Naruto. We leave at first light tomorrow to IWA. Tsunade, please take care of the formalities for now. It may be a few years before I see you again. Something tells me Pain already has anticipated my reaction. There is more to this situation than is obvious. He may be hard to find and keep track of. Lead Konoha well and make it strong. Tsunade nodded to Naruto, and surprisingly to Jiraiya as well. Be safe, both of you, she said as the two shinobi walked out of the hospital briskly. Itachi may not have broken cover for Obasan, but he will if Konoha itself if threatened. When Ajisen is gone to train, we will still be defended, she thought. Be safe, Jiraiya. Ajisen, please be safe. You are the only hope for Mito Obasan. 3 years later. The Hokage Tower, Konohagakure. Shikamaru stood in front of the Hokage as she read the proposal with scrutinizing eyes. The Chunin was nothing if not intelligent. He was being touted as a potential tactical prodigy of the likes of the Nidaime Hokage, the greatest tactician to ever live. He was being mentored by his illustrious father Nara Shikaku in the technical aspects of battle tactics and had risen high in that command structure. There was no help for it, though, not with the delicate balance that held the nations together. The so-called Rookie Nine had specialized in their own strengths, making their graduating batch renowned as the strongest and most talented batch of genins since Uchiha Itachi had himself graduated. Some had even made jounin, thought Shikamaru idly as he observed the Hokage perusing his report. Niji had maintained his reputation as the most talented Hyuga to ever grace their clan as he made jounin in just 2 years after genin. Hayashi often claimed in the council that the purity of Niji's Byakugan was alike to the first of their clan. His thoughts were pushed aside as Tsunade looked up at him with a considering expression. It is an interesting proposal, Shikamaru. Rather bold, I dare say. You know that Orochimaru has holed up in Odo with all those missing nins surrounding him. He has not been seen for the last 3 years. It will be an exceptionally tough mission if approved, said Tsunade sternly, peering up at the Chunin. That is true, Hokage-sama. But we need someone to infiltrate Odogekure to acquire information on its defenses. My father has received intel that Orochimaru has acquired a battalion of IWA nin to bolster the outer wall structure. Akatsuki are building their strongholds quite slowly, but they are doing so surely, he said. Tsunade nodded slowly. True, Orochimaru is secretive and sneaky, and I am afraid he is planning nothing good. Who would you suggest to go on this mission to Odo? Any ninja specializing in stealth would do, Hokage-sama, said Shikamaru, but his fact tightened as he emphasized. An ideal team would be composed of ANBU. This is a very high-level mission, but we might need an S-class ninja to participate, I am afraid. Orochimaru is too sneaky not to anticipate such an attempt. S-class ninja are in short supply, Shikamaru said Tsunade acidly. Kakashi might be one, but his sole responsibility for the moment is training Sasuke. People would laugh if I started doing missions myself. There is really no one else capable of handling Orochimaru in Konoha except a very select few. What about Jiraiya-sama? Asked Shikamaru curiously. We have not had word from him or Naruto recently. They seem to have disappeared from the face of the earth, said Tsunade with frustration. Even Kushina knows nothing. She has her hands full with that Mizukage. I want to go and give that stupid Kage a piece of my mind for keeping a foot out of the door for so long. We must make do with the Reikage and Kumo, Hokage-sama, said Shikamaru. Despite Kushina-sama trying her hardest to bring Mizu, despite the friendship the Mizukage professed with her, Shikamaru shook his head. The village of Mist was turning out to be the one wild card in the entire affair. They were choosing neutrality in this time. I think so, said Tsunade. Akatsuki will be making their move soon. We must be ready to send teams to Kumo at a moment's notice. The Ichibi should be protected at all costs, as should the Nearby. I have received intel. Most likely the attack will not be large-scale. An ambush is expected. I can help predict attack possibilities, Hokage-sama. It should help to make our deployment more focused, said Shikamaru. Tsunade nodded. Do so. I expect the report in 3 days' time, she ordered, and Shikamaru disappeared immediately with a shunshin. He ran through the main streets of Konoha towards the library, jumping up and above several rooftops as he did so. His mind ran several scenarios to solve the problem posed to him, considering and rejecting several possibilities simultaneously. Shikamaru! Shouted Yamanaka Ino, bounding forward from his left. Shikamaru turned and waved at his bubbly teammate. Ino stopped in front of him and bonked him on the head. Well, there you are. I thought we were going to have barbecue with Choji. Watch him scarf down the entire restaurant. But we have been waiting for too long and I simply cannot bear Choji's tantrums. I'm sure, said Shikamaru weakly. It was too troublesome. Ino interrupted him with a spitfire look. He paused right there, eliminating his sad excuse immediately. With a sigh, he followed his former teammate towards the one place he seemed to frequent more than his own home. His trained shinobi senses picked up something odd as he traveled through the village. There was absolutely no wind, yet the trees in Konoha were rustling indiscriminately. Ino looked at him quizzically, also noticing the same thing. It was odd. What was that? Asked Shikamaru as the faint rustling sound seemed to pervade Konoha increasingly. Ino pointed to the streets, noticing several faint blurs race through the village towards the west gate. Shikamaru's eyes widened. Umbu! And all the elite jounin. He whispered in alarm as he saw Mitarashi Anko, Genma and Rado dash through the village. To his left he could catch Aoba and his team running full pelt towards the gate. The rustling of the trees increased tremendously. Every tree in Konoha seemed to sway in its spot, and Shikamaru's eyes widened as he could see new leaves sprout upon the branch he stood upon. No way, said Ino, staring at the continuously blooming flowers to above her. The two shinobi of Konoha seemed to stand still as they felt a sense of happiness and belonging wash over them, and the trees began to shed their blossoms a season too early. He heard 3 shunshins to his right and observed Aburame Shino, Hyuga Niji and Rock Lee coming up to him with urgent expressions. Shikamaru, Shikaka-san requests your presence at West Gate. All the jounin are assembling there along with ANBU. I assume it is a force of invaders. Shikamaru shook his head. He knew exactly who was coming, and it sure as hell was not invaders. Nodding to them, he rushed towards the West Gate with a sense of euphoria and hope as Konoha began to be blanketed with flowering blossoms of every type. The West Gate was teeming with ranks upon ranks of jounin and ANBU, and he could see his father standing impassively at the Hokage's right. To the Hokage's left stood Hatake Kakashi and his current apprentice Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke had grown tremendously as well. His skill was being touted in all quarters. Kakashi's apprentice was known to have attained mastery of the Sharingan, and his Shunshin was possibly the most acclaimed technique in his arsenal. Already Sasuke had completed several borderline S-rank missions without too much effort, and his enterprise and skill had gained him several accolades. Shikamaru rapidly made his way to the Hokage, and was quite surprised as he saw the Rookie 9 gathered with the ANBU. As Ino and the others went to join them, he made directly towards the Hokage. "Hokage-sama, Tusan, what is the situation?" he asked crisply. Tsunade said nothing, only pointing to an empty spot in front of them 100 yards. All the Jounins and Sasuke's eyes were fixed on the same spot, but he saw nothing. "What dash?" Before he could reply, a great puff of white smoke appeared at the exact spot Tsunade had pinpointed, but no one seemed to be alarmed in the slightest. Shikamaru recognized the phenomenon and found himself frowning. "Hello, Tsunade!" came a shout within the cloud of smoke, and Shikamaru. "Jiraiya, your theatrics are old just like you buffoon," said Tsunade in an angry voice as a tall figure with copious white hair became visible. More alarming was the fact that he seemed to be doing a ridiculous dance, hopping around singing praise of himself. "Privileged to meet me, the gallant Jiraiya," he shouted as he lifted up his hands in a pose not really awe-inspiring. Another figure stood to his right, just as tall as him. As the smoke cleared, Shikamaru could see a youth, built every bit as powerfully as Jiraiya himself was. "Could you please give me warning before you throw that smoke pellet?" demanded the youth in a frustrated voice. "That smoke tends to choke me too much," he coughed, and Shikamaru felt the utter silence from the Jounin of the village. "Forget it, Gaki," said Jiraiya. "You will never understand the meaning of epic entrances. You have no clue how to awe your audience to submission." The youth gave a disbelieving scoff and with a final cough lifted up his head to face them all. Tsunade stepped up and whispered, "Naruto, is that really you?" The Rookie 9 were also frozen in surprise. The young man next to Jiraiya was the spitting image of Namikaze Minato, but with differences. He was of sturdier build than the deceased fourth, and was much taller. Sleek golden hair fell down to his shoulders, held in place by the headband of Konoha. His face held much of his father, a trace of his mother, and something he could not put his finger on. Naruto's forest green eyes seemed to be blazing like green embers, and Shikamaru could only barely see past the deception. He could see Naruto had grown tremendously, and he dared not guess how much. "Oh, hello," coughed the young man sheepishly, as Jiraiya banged him on his back. "Hey, Sasuke, I see you have become stronger. And look at all of you," he exclaimed, pointing furiously at each of the Rookie 9. "No longer kids, huh?" They simply stared at him. "Well, dope," smirked Sasuke. Kakashi smiled as only he could, and Sasuke continued. "I see you have finally grasped the concept of people becoming older. Never thought you, of all people, would understand." Shikamaru said nothing as Jiraiya laughed heartily at the joke, and a few Jounin too laughed. Even Tsunade smiled, and turned to the assembled ANBU and Jounin with her orders. The alarm was false. Tell sensory unit that it was not an assault. You may all leave now. With curious and elated looks, all the masked Jounin dispersed with blurs, leaving only Jiraiya, Naruto, Kakashi, Shikamaru and Sasuke with the Hokage. Naruto strode forward to meet the Hokage with a serious expression. "I am ready to heal her." "Heal who?" thought Shikamaru, but Tsunade nodded. "I am glad, we were getting worried. The hospital has been left alone, and we have sealed it to all shinobi. She is ready for your healing." "Do they know?" asked Naruto, gesturing at Sasuke and Shikamaru. Tsunade shook her head. "But Shikamaru must be told as soon as possible. He is our top strategist, and Sasuke, I think you will tell yourself." "Tell what?" asked Sasuke curiously. Naruto nodded to Jiraiya and turned to Shikamaru. "Hey Shikamaru, I know you know several secrets being the chief strategist, but mine is more important than you could possibly imagine. Tell him after the procedure, Naruto, said Jiraiya, and Naruto nodded. Shikamaru followed them with a puzzled expression as they moved toward the old hospital, and he could see the puzzled expression mirrored upon Sasuke's as well. But the others knew, for they held not puzzlement but hope and satisfaction. What could Naruto be hiding? With a few lazy shunshins, Naruto stood in front of the hospital that was declared off-limits to all shinobi but the Hokage. 3 years. It had been 3 years since his awakening. 3 years since his wife was laid low by the treacherous attack of pain and the impostor. He could feel the emotions of the entire village pressing on him gently, knew that his arrival had created a furor that would have to be dealt with later. Why are we here, Naruto? Asked Shikamaru. Naruto turned to the Chunin, immersing himself in his sensory abilities. He could feel absolutely no deception in Shikamaru except for a well-concealed readiness. 3 years had turned them all into youths, not quite men but close enough. He of course was a different matter. Glancing at Tsunade, he said, I believe them to be worthy of my secrets, Tsunade. I will tell them. Sasuke here deserves to know, and Shikamaru is according to you a potential planner of Konoha's strategy. Tsunade nodded in assent, and Kakashi smiled as he saw Sasuke look quizzically at Naruto. Shikamaru remained silent and followed as Naruto led the way into the very leafy interiors of the hospital. A strange chakra pervaded the entire building, seemingly rejuvenating its occupants like a dose of soldier's pills. Naruto strode purposefully through the corridors to the place where his wife awaited healing, focusing his chakra as he did so. Mito had suffered far too much, and he would not let her do so any longer. Within moments, he had reached the room he had sealed with would release, and felt the wonder of Sasuke and Shikamaru. The place was awash with the power of his senjutsu, and he could not help but feel a sense of pride at a job well done. True, 3 years ago his control of his chakra was abominable at best, as he used to release chakra whenever he got stressed in any way. But now he was better. Much better and closer to the supreme skill he had once possessed as Hashirama Senju. What is this place? Whispered Sasuke. To his Sharingan, the tree-covered doors were absolutely blazing with a silver chakra that made him want to laugh with ecstasy. Such was its efficacy and power that even the one labeled the emo Uchiha cracked a wide smile. My own chakra, said Naruto absently, as the trees parted for him. The door was pushed open and the shinobi filed in after Naruto to see another stunning vision. Tsunade and Jiraiya watched closely as Naruto briskly made towards Mito, and laid a palm upon her forehead. The earth shuddered as the 8 pillars of wood was returned to it, and the trees in the room began to return to its source. Tsunade leaned to whisper into Jiraiya's ear. Can he do it? Jiraiya scoffed. Tsunade, he is who he is. If the last 3 years of traipsing around with him have taught me anything, it is to not doubt him. Just watch. Mito-sama will be healed even though it is theoretically impossible. Naruto heard that and smirked at Jiraiya. The man knew more about him anyone except perhaps Mito. His meetings with his mother were few and far in between, and those were fraught with such tension that he was often shunted to consider Kurama's doubts about his mother. What is happening here? Questioned Shikamaru discerningly. Looking around the place with his trademark bored look, Kakashi stood with Jiraiya and Tsunade, and they only watched silently as Naruto joined his palms in the tiger seal. That woman is close to dying, observed Sasuke quietly, but no one even turned to him. His Sharingan was at the Mangekyo stage and he could quite clearly see pathways. What had happened to her was truly atrocious. Sasuke whispered to Kakashi, her source of chakra has been broken. I have no idea how. Trying to heal her is folly. Shikamaru's eyes widened at this, but Naruto opened his eyes to stare at them with a determination that silenced their objections immediately. This time, there was no visible manifestation of chakra around Naruto, but Sasuke could see just how much chakra was contained in his body. It was a wonder he did not explode, taking out the entirety of Konoha with him. She is my wife. Mito is my wife, said Naruto quietly, and saw Shikamaru making the connections fast. Sasuke just stared at him with puzzlement, but Naruto could see the faintest inklings of comprehension steal over him. He had waited 3 years for this moment, learning and training in ways that had almost put him to the ground. Mito began to breathe heavily in her prone form, and Naruto turned down to face her. He had created this technique after 2 years of painstaking research, a culmination of healing techniques all over the countries. Tsunade watched anxiously as Naruto's hands flashed through seals in a sequence even Sasuke could not follow. Sasuke, I need your help, said Naruto as he blurred through the seal sequence. Sasuke started at that. Naruto was never one to ask for help. With a glance at Kakashi, he strode forward, standing at Naruto's side in an instant. With a final seal, he separated his hands and laid one on Mito's chest and one on her brow. Can you do shape manipulation of lightning and fire? He asked intently. Sasuke nodded and held out his hands. The room was lit up as fire and lightning crackled into existence in his palms, and Naruto nodded approvingly. He turned to Tsunade. I need Sasuke because I will fuse all elemental natures to fuel my jutsu. That is how the human body is composed, as you well know, he said, and proceeded to continue. Kakashi interrupted, however. What about yin and yang? Naruto smiled mysteriously and held out his hands widely to the side. Sasuke could see earth chakra and water chakra take shape in both palms, and Naruto intoned softly to the earth, Mokutan, Hote no Jutsu. For huge hands of wood burst from the ground, towering all around them. Their palms held glowing chakras of green, white, silver, and black. A gasp of pure surprise came from Shikamaru, who knew exactly what it took to split chakra in so many ways. His suspicions were all but confirmed as he saw the spectacle of Naruto consciously molding the 8 different pure chakras into one single sphere that hovered above Mito. You all had better close your eyes, Naruto advised them calmly as the sphere's brightness grew to painful levels. It seemed to be fed by the chakras in the hands of Sasuke, Naruto, and the arms of wood. Shikamaru could only stand with growing certainty as the Hokage and the 2S rank Nin simply watched solemnly. Tentai Omoyari, he heard Naruto's voice, and the light of the sphere consumed everything as it fused with Mito's slowly diminishing body. Shikamaru closed his eyes tightly, wrapping himself with the shadows his clan used so well. I could never have expected that Naruto was him of all people, he thought as he staved off the painful light with the shadow manipulation of the Nara clan. He saw Jiraiya's hair elongate and expand to shield himself and Tsunade from the jutsu, and he thought he saw a skeleton of some sort encase Sasuke. Kakashi he could see nowhere in the room. What a twist of fate. Of all the people in Konoha, Naruto is him. Of all the people. Itachi, came the sibilant whisper from Orochimaru, as he manipulated some unknown compound in his laboratory. The snake Sannin turned to face the Uchiha who had seemingly appeared out of nothing in his laboratory, lowering his hood disdainfully. Orochimaru, replied Itachi quietly. Have you finished recreating it? Pain is expecting it to be in his hands very soon. He did not risk using the creation of all things just to indulge your imaginations of the 6-path sage's power. The dank basement seemed to grow moodier as Orochimaru chuckled his dark laugh. Carefully replacing the vial of a bright red liquid in its holder, he wiped his hands and turned to Itachi. Pain demands much. That metal is not very easy to make malleable, Itachi. It will take time, he said condescendingly. Itachi stared at him disquietingly for a time, and then nodded slightly. So be it. Pain has a message for you. If you think you can betray us again, you will be destroyed without hesitation, said Itachi as he wavered out of existence balefully. Orochimaru just laughed at the Uchiha's words. He knew all too well how testy pain could be. A dark corner in the lab stirred, and out came his promising subordinate Kabuto. Orochimaru-sama, what do you think Akatsuki will do with the item? He asked curiously. The Rinnegan has the ability to manipulate all the elements without such a crutch. It seems like inordinate effort to get something they already have. Orochimaru's face grew pensive. Despite all his intelligence and acumen, he had wondered the selfsame thing. Why on earth would Pain ask for such a thing? There were things going on he did not know about, and not knowing something was a great irritant to the snake Sannin. I do not know, Kabuto, he admitted distastefully, but I will find out. Naruto had just finished activating the powerful seal of privacy in the Hokage Tower, and made to sit down leisurely in a rather comfortable chair. Relief was written all over his face. The healing of Mito had gone better than he had expected. They had all gathered in the Hokage Tower, with Shikamaru staring at Naruto with a white and amazed face. A wide smile suddenly split Naruto's face, and he suddenly started dancing around with anime tears streaming down his face. They stared at him, Shikamaru looking so surprised that he might as well faint. She is healed. She is healed. Naruto kept chanting continuously as he performed a rather disturbing jig. Jiraiya facepalmed, and Sasuke stared right into Naruto's eyes. Shut up. At this, Naruto's face fell, though the cheer remained in his eyes. Sorry about that, he said, scratching his head diffidently. It is just, I am so happy. They heard a brief croaking kind of sound, and turned to Shikamaru, who was making a series of said sounds with an indignant hand pointing at Naruto. You, he sputtered, his face so white that Naruto was sure he would go to radish-level whiteness. What? Asked Sasuke irritably, somewhat alarmed by the unflappable Shikamaru's extreme reactions. He looked at Naruto with a discerning expression. True, the healing was extremely impressive. Jiraiya and Kakashi looked at Shikamaru with a smug amusement, enjoying the young Chunin's reaction. Oh, you have deduced my identity, haven't you? Asked Naruto happily. Sasuke stared at him with a deadpan look. Dobe, Shikamaru is not that dumb. No, you don't understand, choked out Shikamaru. He is not Naruto. He is Senju Hashirama, said the Nara in a faint voice. Sasuke stared at him as if he had gone crazy, not noticing the knowing looks of the others. You have finally gone insane, haven't you? Not that you Nara people were any saner in the first place. And you call Uchiha unstable. You've lost it, said Sasuke, shaking his head miserably. Then he looked up at Kakashi. Sensei, did you hear that load of Seirdashi paused? You don't actually believe him, do you? He asked in an incredulous pointed at Naruto furiously. You don't believe that the dobe here is actually Hashirama himself, do you? He cannot be him. That would mean he is stronger than even my ancestor Madara. That is impossible for someone like him. Hey, said Naruto indignantly. I defeated Madara every single time we fought, you know? I used to be better than him. Not to mention you defeated me along with him, came Kurama's rather put-out voice. That wood release of yours is really annoying. I have much more chakra than you, but you got me all too easily. This is insanity, said Sasuke. You are all insane, he said in a blank voice and tried to make out of the room. Tsunade stood up immediately. Stand down, Sasuke. This is an SS-class secret, and we will not let you walk out freely with it whether or not you believe in it. Listen carefully, said Tsunade, and laid forth the evidence that supported Naruto's claims. All of it. An hour later, both Shikamaru and Sasuke stared at Naruto with amazement. Naruto grinned at them weakly. Pleased to meet you, Sasuke. For your information, you are nothing close to Madara, he said reassuringly. Sasuke's eyes narrowed dangerously. Naruto waved his hands around frantically. No, not like that. You are not of Madara's darkness. You are much better than him, he shouted. causing the Uchiha to calm down. Shikamaru said weakly, "Senju Hashirama." "That's me," said Naruto. "Raise." "We can't tell you everything at once," said Jiraiya immediately. "We will only cover the important points for now. It would take a long time to tell you all everything. Right?" he asked an agreeable Naruto, who was still basking in relief and happiness. "Yeah, but be brief," replied Naruto, and returned to his relieved lounging. Jiraiya turned to them and began. "We spent the first year traveling around to hone our skills, infiltrated IWA in the late portion of that year. Early next year we were detected by Pain, and I had to literally drag Naruto out of the village for fighting Pain in the middle of his own base was foolishness. We were in hiding near Odo for the next few months, during which I met Orochimaru and nearly killed him. I too had suffered serious wounds and took another month to recuperate. Finally, for the last year we wandered the nations of Mizu and Kumo, occasionally meeting Kushina. It was during this time that training yielded the most result," finished Jiraiya, to a room that was blinking after the overly simplified account. "I see," said Tsunade, blinking once in surprise. Naruto palmed his forehead. "Not that brief, you perverted hermit," he exclaimed. Jiraiya smirked at him, causing him to turn to Tsunade with an exasperated look. "That was pretty much what happened," he said. Tsunade shook her head, glancing at Jiraiya with an angered look. "You idiot. That is why we could not draw out Orochimaru from his hidey hole. Now it turns out that it was you doing a half-baked job that cost us so many ANBU." Naruto was on immediate alert. They had lost ANBU to Odo Geikure? Jiraiya's face showed utter surprise at the fact. "What happened?" asked Naruto seriously. Tsunade sighed, and Naruto felt a deep melancholy take hold of the room. His senses could feel a particular sadness from Sasuke, a kind that felt very familiar, a kind that felt... "Whom did you lose?" asked Naruto in a soft voice to Sasuke. Kakashi shot him a warning look, but he needed to know. Sasuke looked down to the ground, and the fact that he was so controlled in his emotional display brought home to Naruto how much he had grown. "My sensei, Yuzuki Yugogo. She taught me how to use the sword like a true shinobi," said Sasuke, his fist clenching briefly. Shikamaru was also highly poignant, and Naruto noticed it. "What happened?" he asked again. "The ANBU stationed near Orochimaru's base were getting blasts of extremely strong chakra," said Tsunade. "They were ordered to investigate the base as soon as possible, and it was termed an S-rank mission. We have lost contact from them a year ago now. We assume Orochimaru killed them all," she finished with a sad tone. "But we almost died in that fight. Both of us," said Jiraiya harshly. "Even that creep would take some time to recover from that fight, so it could not have been him. It was most likely someone else. Not Akatsuki, or else either I or Naruto would have felt their presence." "Not necessarily," said Naruto. "I have searched for Pain for a long time now, and he has managed to evade me every time I think I have him. For the last year I have been aware of Orochimaru's unnatural behavior. Not that it was ever natural," he said with a hint of disgust. "I wanted for us to attack Odo," snarled Sasuke, as his eyes burned red. "But he pointed to Tsunade with fury. "She would not let me go. Told me I would be considered a nuke nin if I disobeyed her orders." "She was right to do so," Sasuke said Shikamaru quietly. Before they could bicker too much, Naruto intervened. "Kakashi," he said loudly, "how strong do you think Sasuke is?" Everybody quieted down, looking curiously at the jounin. Kakashi looked at Sasuke and then back at Naruto. After a few moments he said in a low voice, "He can awaken Susanoo." Naruto's eyes widened, memories coming to him from his other life. Memories of a battle when he and Madara had fought as just boys, the moment when Madara had showed him just what it meant to possess the Mangekyo Sharingan. He had little doubt that if one took the trouble to trace back the lineage of Sasuke and Itachi, they would be lead inevitably to Madara. "Why?" asked Sasuke hollowly. My strength is of no use if I cannot use it to help my precious people, he said, shooting a dirty look at Tsunade, who stared back firmly. Naruto held up his hand, drawing attention. Do you think he can hold off Orochimaru if it comes down to that? He questioned Kakashi intently. The one-eyed Jounin frowned, considering his reply. Sasuke remained silent. He can, said Kakashi shortly. Not for long, but he can do it. Naruto nodded briefly. I will not send him, said Tsunade firmly, causing Naruto to turn to her. I will not send that boy and allow him to get captured by Orochimaru or possibly killed. No need, said Naruto and smiled grimly. Jiraiya's eyes widened. He knew that tone. Before he could say anything, Naruto had said his piece. I know you want to flush out Orochimaru. He will not be flushed out unless there is a reason. I can be that reason, said Naruto in a serious voice. Sasuke needs to rescue his Kenjutsu sensei. You need information on Orochimaru, and I really do not like Akatsuki. If I create a distraction, you can slip in even Sasuke. I occupy those Otogekyure for enough time to let the Nin complete their missions. Everyone wins, except Oto, said Naruto triumphantly. The room was too silent, but it was broken eventually by Shikamaru. Your plan would be good, but for the fact that the moment you use Mokuton it would alert the Akatsuki nations into premature actions. We are not yet prepared for a war. He is right, said Kakashi. Naruto shook his head slightly. I will not use Mokuton then. I could defeat Izuna without it, and I damn well killed Kakuzu without it. I can definitely handle Orochimaru's ragtag army without it, he said firmly. Are you quite sure? Asked Tsunade in a grave voice. Naruto nodded, but Jiraiya shouted desperately. You cannot be serious. You have not seen those diversions of his Heim. He will raise Otogekyure to the ground again. Trust me, I would know. Why else do you think Orochimaru is reinforcing it with earth walls? You perverted hermit! Shouted Naruto in return. Orochimaru had stabbed you with Kusanagi and I had to do something. Killing that snake would take too much time and you were dying fast. It was the best I could come up with at the time. Fine grumbled Jiraiya. Everyone was looking at them with amazement, Tsunade with exasperation. Really? That was the reason why we are in this mess. Your solutions are sometimes too drastic, Ajisen, she exclaimed. Naruto held up his hands in surrender. I said I would help, didn't I? So what do you say about my plan? Asked Naruto curiously. Everyone looked to Tsunade, who asked Shikamaru. I find no real debilitating consequences. Can you? She asked. What if Akatsuki come? Asked the Nara. Naruto's eyes became filled with a terrible anger. Let them come. They have escaped me for quite some time now. They have been steering clear of me quite prudently. If they come, I will tear them to pieces, he promised viciously. Sasuke looked alarmed at this side of Naruto's. The truth about the Uzumaki had not yet sunk in. But now he could see traces of something far older and more powerful than he could possibly imagine in the Dobe's face, and could begin to accept the impossible truth. That Naruto was Senju Hashirama reborn into the world. I am sure you will, Shodai-sama, Shikamaru managed to say. Naruto waved his hand at the Nara, calming down immediately. Do not call me that, Shikamaru. I am him, but not entirely. It would be an abomination for the dead to reclaim themselves in this manner. I am Hashirama, but Naruto describes my personality better. Shikamaru nodded diffidently. The time is coming, said Jiraiya suddenly. Intel has reached me that Akatsuki is beginning to make a move on Ichibi and Niabai. This means Kumogakure is under danger. All for the better, said Naruto calmly. Tsunade turned to him incredulously. How can you say that? She demanded. Simple. I attack Oto, we cripple their presence in that area. They will not strike back until really necessary, not until they are threatened directly. Pain does not care about such peripheral support as long as he is fixated upon the bijou. This is our best chance to take out Otogekure with a minimum of interference, he said, with eyes shining in their excitement. So, as long as Akatsuki concentrates on the Jinchuriki, they will not concentrate too much on Oto, said Tsunade musingly. It will not escalate into a war we are not truly prepared for. At best, it will be a minor battle, she said, mirroring the cunning look in Naruto's eyes. I don't care, said Sasuke. I only wish to rescue my sensei. And rescue her we will, said Naruto pleasantly. And along with that, we will deal Orochimaru a nice surprise. I still haven't forgiven him for almost killing the pervert here, nor for resurrecting my family in such an abominable manner. Will you be taking a team with you? Asked Shikamaru curiously. No, said Naruto firmly. I will cause widespread panic in Oto with my attack, and they will all pile up on me in their hurry. Sasuke will blend into the confusion and search the base to complete the mission. I would appreciate Kakashi here with me, though. You have business here, don't you, Ero-sennin? I do, said Jiraiya. I have important things to do. If you try to peep on Shizune or me once more, threatened Tsunade with cracking knuckles. Jiraiya denied it vehemently. We'll leave tomorrow then, shall we? Asked Naruto to Tsunade. The Hokage nodded with anticipation. Bring him down, Ajisen. Let us end Orochimaru once and for all. They are nothing in front of my eyes, said Sasuke arrogantly. Naruto laughed out nostalgically, causing Sasuke to turn to him with a perplexed look. After a few moments of short guffaws, he said, In many ways you are like my old friend Madara. He said the exact same thing when the two of us fought the Yatsuki clan's original army. But that was when we were friends, he reminisced sadly. Shodai Raikage's personal army, just after Konoha was built? Asked Shikamaru with wide eyes. On Naruto's nod, he said, That army was 7,000 shinobi strong. Naruto scratched his head, remembering him and Madara standing by each other's side as they literally slaughtered the entire army. He had only sought to incapacitate them, but Madara had not hesitated. No, I think it was more like 9,000, confessed Naruto. Sasuke let out a shocked exclamation. 9,000! He choked out in a stunned whisper. Kakashi shook his head resignedly. Madara was almost about to kill the man who would become Shodai Raikage. The man had surrendered, he was too afraid of our strength. Said we were not of this world, reminisced Naruto. I had everyone in my half restrained and incapacitated, and Madara had killed everybody in his half of the army. I mean everyone. I was sickened by his actions, and stopped him from dealing the final blow. From then he always took to calling me a soft-hearted fool, who did not know to kill his enemies. You stopped your half of an army of 9,000 shinobi without killing them? Asked Shikamaru in a faint voice. If that is true, then I do not think we will have too many problems with Oto. I am inclined to agree, said Kakashi with his understated humor. Naruto looked at Tsunade seriously. I wish to be back before Mito awakens, for which I give a week. It will take time for her body to recuperate completely. We must begin our preparations. Kurama, it is time for me to fulfill my promise. So you aren't balking like I expected you to. When will you do it? I would release me right upon Orochimaru, I could wreck up that mud hole of his for you, a parting gift of sorts. I appreciate the offer. Truly, Ido. But I prefer not to let the world know that you are free. If they come after you desiring power, I will not be able to stop them if you are not present. Raikage has the amber sealing pot, and shinobi exist who are adept at sealing. True indeed. Will you release me here right in sight of Konoha? It might be fun. For you, perhaps. No. I will release you the moment we are at a safe distance from Konoha. I swear it upon my forefathers and my grandchildren unborn that you will never face me as an opponent again. Not of my own choosing. What? I think. You are actually serious, aren't you? About releasing me and the promise not to seek me out for power? No jokes, Kyuubi. I never break my word. I am a previous Hokage after all. I hope you remain hidden when you are free, Kurama. If pain comes at you with his outer path, all your infinite chakra cannot save you. A long hour of silence ensued as Naruto rushed through the trees, Kakashi and Sasuke following him easily. And then, I know. He wields that power too well. It is what created me, and it can cause me no end of trouble. That's why. No, don't tell me. Shut up. That is why I will help you in your endeavor. Peace is conducive to me as well, Naruto. I can fade into obscurity that way when men no longer want me for my power. I will have you as my Jinchuriki for now, but I will hold you to your promise when the time truly comes. Fine. I wouldn't want you to be captured anyway, and I will honor my promise to you when you demand it. I will one day make sure human malice will never touch the bijou again. Normally I would laugh heartily at such a declaration, said the Kyuubi quietly. But if anyone has a chance at such a thing, it would be you. You remind me of grandfather a lot, what with all your ridiculous idealism and convictions. Grandfather? You mean the Rikadu Sannin? But the Kyuubi had gone silent, causing Naruto to go silent as well. Kurama's sudden faith in him was moving. He could faintly understand the uncounted centuries of suffering the tailed beasts must have gone through. It filled him with great shame that he had also once been party to conquering them for their power. The balance of power, huh? He murmured softly to himself, shaking his head disgustedly. Using such originally pure beings as pawns in a feudal games for power. He must have been insane in his other life. I can see your soul, Kyuubi, since it resides within mine. You are not a mass of hatred as I once foolishly thought you to be. You were made that way by us, by humans. I still feel ashamed about it. I would let you free right this instant, but for your own decision. The warm acknowledgement from the strongest of the bijou put a smile on his face, and he raced forward with a renewed vigor. When he had asked Mito to seal the Kyuubi within herself, she had done so with little hesitation and without asking him why. Mito could not be faulted. His beautiful wife was always there to support him in every way possible. Just as I was not there for her in this life. I keep failing continuously, it seems, he thought to himself sadly. It was his fault that day. His fault that so much suffering had been spread around to maintain the balance of power. His fault that he had foolishly, naively thought that distributing the bijou like weapons to the other nations would hold the balance. He shook his head sadly. The very act of distribution was wrong. How could an act, born out of ignorance and neglect, yield anything inherently good? He had begun to regret that fact now, an entire life later. The fact that he had even disturbed entities like the bijou. Foolish pride of his first youth, no doubt. He had begun a cycle of suffering that had thrown a huge wrench into Rikudo's intentions for the bijou. It was direct disrespect to the father of ninja and to his own ideals. But I will end it in this life, he promised himself. He would one day gather all the 9 bijou, earn their respect, and give them a choice to be free. He had made a terrible mistake in letting the bijou be used as they had been, and the nations were paying a terrible price for it now. Dobe, are you fine? Asked Sasuke in a voice of faux concern. Naruto nodded as Kakashi called a halt in the middle of the forest. We will pause here for the night. At least we are within sight of Hai no Kuni. We also need to plan how we are going to go about this mission, said the copy ninja in his lazy voice. Wood rose out of the earth in tall pillars, molding itself into fantastic shapes to form a beautiful house of traditional architecture. Flowers bloomed across its sloping tiles, and detailed sculptures of stone rose on either side of its entrance. Thank you, Naruto, said Kakashi genially, as Sasuke gawked at the palatial house Naruto had built in seconds. Well, are you coming or not? Asked Naruto as he walked happily to the house he had created. As he slid open the doors, a smile came onto his face. It seems my attention to detail has improved, he said, pointing to the carvings on the roof and walls. The roof of the building was transparent and allowed for them to see the night sky in all its glory. But the make of the house itself was quite royal. Sasuke shook his head, feeling deeply touched by the things Mokutan could create. As a tool to build or a force to destroy, it had no equal. He bent enough of his pride to admit that not even the Sharingan could achieve something like this. Sharingan was only about never-ending conflicts and destruction. Not like Naruto's Mokutan, which could spawn beauty such as this. Even when Mokutan destroyed, it created. Even when it took several lives in the battlefield, it created several living plants. He had begun to think of the Susanoo as his tool of ultimate destruction. Several times he had used it to destroy hapless ninja he had encountered in the other missions. Naruto glanced at Sasuke, feeling in the Uchiha an all too familiar emotion. It was a tiredness of conflict, a loathing of malice, and at the same time an urge to do anything necessary to end the suffering. But therein lay the choice. The fine line between Madara and himself lay in that choice. The fine line between Pain and himself also lay in that choice. The choice of how to end the suffering. I will put up intruder alert seals over the perimeter, said Kakashi and vanished from sight. Naruto seated himself on the bed with a sigh and turned to Sasuke, who was busily organizing his belongings. Sasuke laid out his bedspread neatly and also sat down on his bed. He looked around the large room with a sense of envy, feeling the beautiful wood that made it. The room itself was furnished with all amenities required for a house, some so ostentatious that he doubted whether even the daimyo's house had such things. For one, he did not think a makeshift camp warranted a highly polished teak dining table. His Sharingan could tell easily that such a thing would fetch hundreds of thousands of ryo. Even he could find no faults in its structure or smoothness. He turned to Naruto and indicated the entire house with a wave of his hand. All this, he said softly. I begin to feel a lack of pride in my Sharingan, he confessed, drawing an absolutely shocked look from Naruto. That was certainly not what he had been expecting to hear, that too from an Uchiha fanatic like Sasuke. What the dash? I know it is amusing to you, but I begin to feel tired of our life of anger and killing. Is that all there is to it? Kill, gather power, kill, become powerful, become stronger. It is a vicious cycle, said Sasuke with sorrow. Naruto waited, knowing Sasuke was suffering deeply. Konoha had failed once more in following his edicts. Long ago he had made it law that children were not to participate in missions, and yet Sasuke had been forced to do so. There was no help for it, but it was saddening to see the despairing face of old veterans upon a young face like Sasuke's. Killing fellow shinobi? I know that is a necessity, said Sasuke in a quiet voice. I had to kill several in my missions with Kakashi. But when I was forced to kill children, not much older than me and many times younger than me. One was barely 12 years of age. It was horrible. They came at me to kill me and I killed them in return. But to see the life leaving their eyes, terrible, said Sasuke, shaking his head. Then he glanced around the opulent castle Naruto had called up with his technique. Seeing your Mokutan being used in such a manner, it is changing my conception of the world, he confessed. Naruto's eyes widened, looking at the Uchiha with interest. Oh? How so? For once, I have no wish to destroy things. Seeing this beautiful house so easily shaped, I too want to do something like that. Sharingan can only destroy, never create. I have destroyed and destroyed, repeatedly. I have killed children. Here his mouth twisted in self-loathing, and his eyes grew haunted. You say you are Hashirama Senju reborn, so you may understand the joy of building everlasting things, he said after a few moments. How did you build Konoha? I don't mean the story. I will hear that another time. I mean, exactly how did you build Konoha? With Toshi no Jasho, said Naruto softly. As the assembled clans of Uchiha and Senju stood there waiting, I used Mokuton to create what you know to be the inner ring of Konoha today. I see, said Sasuke, trying to picture such a scene. With your Mokuton, you can build things. You can rid entire lands of their drought, and your healing can bring people back from near their deaths. You have the strength to turn this world into a paradise, he said passionately. Naruto sat stunned at the fervent proclamation of the Uchiha. He had never ever heard any Uchiha speak that way. He had never suspected Sasuke to have changed this much in 3 years. No, he had not. These were profound thoughts Sasuke had put forth, and it touched something in him that he had thought was lost in endless conflict. My Sharingan is nothing more than a weapon, said Sasuke dismissively, as if realizing it just now. I only now understand what Itachi was trying to tell me all those years ago as I begged and pleaded with him to tell me how he mastered those eyes at merely 8 years. Uchiha are not defined by their jujitsu, he said, but by something much deeper, something beyond even chakra. Silence fell over them as they heard a faint whisper come into the room. Kakashi watched Sasuke with a visible pride that shone strongly on his face, something that even Naruto felt. He could count on his fingers the number of Uchiha who had come to the same epiphany as Sasuke. He knew that the young Uchiha would never fall to the curse of hatred. The will of fire, said Kakashi softly, staring at Naruto. Naruto nodded, and his forest green eyes shone with a wisdom that stunned Kakashi and Sasuke. He turned to Sasuke and said, There is no excuse for killing. We shinobi do it as a matter of course. Giving various justifications, he said in a weary voice. But a garden cannot grow if the weeds are not pruned. It is only this belief that has sustained my sanity in both lives. Sasuke. I have tried to avoid killing as much as I could, only doing so in defense of my loved ones. But sometimes there is no choice. You must not let those demons dominate you. Sasuke and Kakashi sat silently, letting the words of the reborn first wash over them. Naruto continued. The sage of the 6 paths was a peaceable man, an enlightened man. He used chakra to aid humanity and to help it reach a new stage of bliss. But fools that we are, we used his gift and turned it into a weapon. Chakra was never meant to be weapon originally. Minato-sensei once said the same thing, reminisced Kakashi. He said fire existed to give life and not burn it. Water to nurture life and not drown it. Lightning to illuminate life and not vaporize it. Earth to beget life and not bury it. And wind to convey life, not to cut it. My father was a wise man, indeed, said Naruto softly. Sasuke seemed to be mulling over the 4th saying. He spoke the truth, Sasuke. You say you cannot use Sharingan to build? I remember my subordinate, Uchiha Kiyoshi, who used illusions of Sharingan to alleviate insanity. I remember Uchiha Ida, who used the Sharingan to learn painting to such an extent that it once made Mito shed tears openly. Such was the pathos in his paintings. But I also remember Uchiha Madara, my best friend, who used his Sharingan to protect his kinsmen from all harm. Silence enveloped the room at this. Naruto stretched in his bed, working out kinks calmly before he turned to Sasuke. Words cannot soothe regret, Sasuke, but perhaps actions can, and even better our own perspectives can, he said, before letting himself being taken by sleep. They had much to do in the morning, and he hoped he had brought some peace to the beguiled mind of the Uchiha. Good night, everyone, he murmured. The morning shone bright and crisp, shafts of sunlight penetrating the beautiful house Naruto had erected. The trilling of forest birds made the air even more salubrious than usual, but the air was darkened by the menacing nature of the discussions happening in the room of dining. Is guarded at all times by those sound ninja. The outer walls are reinforced heavily with earth, and it is held actively at all times by a dozen powerful Doton users. Orochimaru himself lives in a secret underground base and no one exactly knows where it is. Sasuke will need time to search the base, even with Sharingan, said Kakashi. calmly eating the fruit provided to them by Naruto. "These apples are delicious," he added generously to Naruto, who grinned. "Thank you. But coming back to the subject, I can overwhelm Doton users. But all our hopes rest in making Orochimaru frantic with our assault, so much so that he does not see through our ruse. He will sense my chakra the moment I am within sight of Oto. The last time I was there really scared him, I think," said Naruto. Kakashi considered deeply, but Sasuke spoke up first. "Then flare your chakra. He will be so prepared for you that he won't see me coming," said Sasuke. Naruto could see his emotions had changed considerably. There seemed to be a somewhat lighter feel to his thoughts. No longer were Sasuke's thoughts riddled with their usual melancholy and sadness. His chakra felt warm and hopeful, not its usual forbidding cold. He felt happiness that he had ignited hope in an Uchiha. Turning to Sasuke, he replied, "An excellent idea, Sasuke. As long as I am a diversion, let me be a proper 1 inch," he said. Kakashi looked at Sasuke and said firmly, "If you encounter Orochimaru or Akatsuki, do not use Mangekyo Sharingan. If you do so, they might send Itachi against you. Even if he fights half seriously, Itachi can overwhelm you without even meaning to do so." "I have no intention of fighting Itachi," said Naruto, bowing his head. "In fact, the lesser we meet, the lesser our association will be suspected. So Kakashi is right, Sasuke. But I have faith enough in your abilities that you can easily complete this mission." "I won't fail," said Sasuke with certainty. "But if my sensei is threatened, I will not hesitate to use Mangekyo Sharingan. If things get too dangerous." "I believe so as well," said Kakashi. "Orochimaru is gathering force at Oto, however, and we would be wise not to dismiss them as the usual rabble." "I agree," said Naruto. "We must attack in the night, though. Most shinobi are less aware during the night. I say we make the move tonight. Sharingan can see through the dark, and this will give Sasuke an added advantage. My sensory skills care not whether or not it is light or dark." "So do we leave now?" "Oto is quite a distance from this place," said Sasuke. Naruto nodded, standing up as he finished his berries. "We leave now and we make to Oto with as much speed as possible. Orochimaru needs plenty of warning for this plan to succeed. I will also have enough time to sense Oto defenses and shinobi, and that more than anything will give us a real edge in this mission." Haiden has been sent to Takigakure. Their Jinchuriki has escaped from her prison, it seems. "I have no doubt Haiden and Kakuzu can deal with that problem," said Itachi stoically. He stood in Akatsuki's sprawling base at IWA, amazed as always at how an organization in the shadows had become such a real factor in the forging of the nations. Pain himself had erected the base when the Tsuchikage had refused to help them, literally shaping the huge structure out of the bare bones of the earth. The power of the Rinnegan had been evident then, as had the supremely augmented power of the Akatsuki leader. Perhaps of all the earth users, only the Tsuchikages or Hashirama could emulate or surpass that feat. "Good," said Pain in his deep voice. "Orochimaru is delaying?" "He is. I just think he wants more time to experiment with your creation." "I have no idea why you have not destroyed him," said Itachi. The air rippled next to him, and spat out a black-robed man with an orange mask and a single Sharingan revealed. "Because," said Toby, "he is a valuable pawn, and possibly the only one who can understand how to shape that particular metal. As long as we threaten him properly, he will bend to our will." "I am not so sure," said Itachi. "He is as slippery as a snake, and about as deadly. I predict that his being alive will bring us little good. Already my Sharingan could see more traces of deception in his manner. Much more than usual, I mean. Perhaps I must go there and teach him a lesson," mused Pain absently. "He has long delayed the delivery of my staff, and I cannot hear of it any longer. Or I can send Kisame. He has been raring to go after Orochimaru for quite some time now, ever since his blood sample was taken in his sleep. Itachi's mouth twitched at that. Orochimaru had stolen Kisame's blood as the shark-faced shinobi slept, and only the interference of pain had stopped Kisame from turning Orochimaru into a decoration for Samahata in retaliation. Kisame might go to the extremes, said Tobi silkily. I do not want to alienate Orochimaru, only threaten him subtly. He is too important a resource to do so. I wish to capture the Ichibi as soon as possible. But if Naruto Uzumaki interferes, it will be a problem. Tobi, can you just not steal into the place and get Ichibi? Asked Pain. Tobi chuckled. Ichibi is too powerful to ferry through interdimensional space. All that chakra is too heavy for any one man to carry, said Tobi. Pain frowned. But do not worry, said Tobi cheerfully. All we need to do is draw the Ichibi out. To do that we need to hold his siblings. For some reason they all come running for family, said the masked shinobi. Itachi kept his disdain hidden. One day soon he would take great pleasure in burning Tobi slowly in the fires of Amaterasu. Problems, Itachi? Asked Tobi jovially, but Itachi could see the wariness in the man. He shook his head. None, Tobi. I only wonder at the fact that Uzumaki might again get involved. As Pain says, that might be an issue. Tobi laughed darkly as his jutsu swallowed him up. That is the beauty of taking hostages, my dear Itachi. You get to demand whatever you want. Itachi was sickened by the man's callous disregard for the most fundamental aspects of life. Pain turned to him, his tall and powerful frame literally glowing with chakra to his Sharingan. I hear Uzumaki Mito has been revived. She has, said Itachi, and felt a burst of true happiness at the fact. Naruto had done it once more. He had shown just who the Akatsuki were dealing with, not that they knew it. This fact more than any other had made Pain wary in his approach, for not even he was skilled enough to heal a person in such a state. Not even with all the vaunted powers of the Rinnegan. Then Akatsuki should be alerted to take care. We captured her through luck the last time, and a vengeful Mito Uzumaki will only add to our obstacles. 7, 8 and 9, said Naruto quietly to Sasuke and Kakashi, who were watching from the fringes of the forest as night fell and caught the now visible Otogekure in its gloom. 9 shinobi are constantly watching this sector. All of them are fire-natured, no doubt to take advantage of the combustible nature of the forest. His eyes narrowed slightly. He did not like people harming trees, and not just for the obvious reasons. He looked at Kakashi as the Jounin stood perfectly still in the falling dusk, evaluating their rough plan and thinking of changes. This makes it imperative that we attack first, Naruto, concluded Kakashi. Or else Sasuke can never make it in. Do we invade the city, or do we fight from without? He asked. Naruto frowned. That was a good question. If they went in, there would be problems with attracting the brunt of the Oto shinobi. But it would definitely cause more confusion. To begin with, we attack from outside. Once there is enough confusion, we force our way in and act as backup for Sasuke if necessary, said Naruto firmly. Kakashi nodded, and Sasuke said solemnly, Thank you for your help. I do not care who you are, but thank you. I will not forget how you pulled me out of madness, healed my eyes and body, and now this, said Sasuke gratefully. Naruto just slapped him on the back comradely, causing his knees to buckle. Sasuke glared at him for a moment, then rolled his eyes. Shall we begin? Asked Naruto with gleaming eyes. Kakashi nodded, and they rushed through the forest towards Otogekure with rapid shunshins. Naruto could feel Sasuke take cover at the edge of the forest, and as he turned back he could see nothing of the Uchiha. He could only sense him. Orochimaru has really bolstered the defenses of his city, hasn't he? Observed Kakashi. Naruto could only agree as he saw the high walls of Otogekure and extended his senses to them. He was thoroughly impressed by the workmanship of the wall. He has, said Naruto, not bothering to whisper. He could see the attention of the shinobi patrols shift towards his voice, and he nodded to Kakashi. Shall we give them more signals? They seem to be rather dull on picking up on the voice and intent of enemies, he grinned. Kakashi nodded and began to flare his chakra and killer intent. Shouts began to go up around the village, rending the night with its urgent dirges. A bell began to toll in the village and Naruto could hear the frantic milling of shinobi, urgent to get to their location. They had placed themselves neatly in front of the south gate of Odo as Naruto had sensed a good concentration of the patrols in that direction. Within seconds, 30 shinobi had surrounded them completely, and a tall man had drawn a sword, pointing it balefully at Kakashi. Hatake Kakashi, you will not survive your arrogance, he stated. Naruto smirked as he saw Kakashi blur into action, mercilessly cutting down the offenders. No matter what jutsu they shot at Kakashi, they did not even put a scratch on him. As the sounds of metal cutting through flesh rang through the night, he stared up at the tall walls of Orochimaru's village. He could certainly blast the gates open and simply lay into the village, but that would not be a real distraction. He glanced at Kakashi, who effortlessly dodged the onslaught of 3 blurring swords and disappeared with a shunshin. A moment later, 3 opponents lay dead in the grass with shurikens embedded in their backs. Just eliminate them. That Sharingan fellow is taking far too long, grumbled Kurama in his mind. Naruto said nothing, only watching as Kakashi dealt with the remaining 10 Nukenin, using the Sharingan to effortlessly dodge their strikes. One man seemed to suddenly observe him and shouted to his fellows. Naruto sighed as 5 seemed to split off from Kakashi and rush towards him. They were simply annoyances and he had an entire city to assault. As a katana flashed towards him in the hands of a yelling shinobi, he seemed to fade into the night. Using his sensory skill, he disappeared in 5 perfect shunshin to incapacitate his opponents with accurate strikes to their vital points. As he looked around the prone bodies of their first victims, he saw Kakashi appear at his side. Do we begin? Yes, the clamor in the village is increasing. They know someone is invading them, but not much else, he said, pointing to the fully shut south gate. He could sense the exigency of the entire village. There was no more time to be lost, for he had to get all the attention on himself if Sasuke were to have a chance. Everyone on the village would have to be focused upon him, including Orochimaru and all the other Akatsuki present. He could sense several chakras massed behind the gate, and knew that they would attack any moment soon. Kakashi, you were in the ANBU? Yes. Then you are highly trained in the katana, correct? He asked intently as he drew his own sword from its sheath on his back. He had deliberately worn a long white cloak with the Senju trident symbol painted on its back. Jiraiya had told him that he was the spitting image of Namake's Minato. He was sure that it was Yondaime Hokage himself come back to life. I am, said Kakashi, his eyes gleaming as he too drew his sword. It was a concession the copy ninja had made upon Naruto's request, for it was far easier to deal with multiple enemies when a real sword was used. The gates suddenly burst open and dozens of shinobi poured forth from it towards them, pausing dead as they saw no army. They saw only 2 men. Naruto nodded to Kakashi, and they began to walk forward impassively. The enemy shinobi buckled slightly, visibly trying to throw off the force of his mighty chakra, as a nimbus of silver surrounded him and made him glow slightly in the night. He could feel Sasuke waiting anxiously for the chaos, and quickened his steps into a run. The masked shinobi in front of him broke into a run as well, drawing their weapons in a massive dirge of steel. In an instant he had covered the distance between them, leaving Kakashi behind him as he threw himself into the oncoming ninja faster than they could react to. Multiple swords slashed at him from all directions, but he parried each and every one of them, returning deadly blows. His speed was phenomenal as his enemies seemed to simply die as his sword rose and fell faster than they could react. He could see Kakashi rushing the ones behind him, and was sorely disappointed with how weak the ninja of today had become. A barrage of kunai flew towards him, and he effortlessly dodged each and every one, allowing his sensory skills to guide him in evading the chakra-imbued weapons. He caught a shinobi who attacked him from behind by his arm, and kicked him back with such force that he collided with 3 others painfully and smashed into the wall of Odo. He disappeared once more in a burst of speed, and simply clove through the masked shinobi like a hot knife through butter. What happened to these people? He thought with surprise as he cut his way single-handedly to the gates of Odo. Is this some sort of trap? No, idiot. This is the effect of that piece you forced down their throats. They have become fat and lazy, nothing compared to the ninja of old. That was probably true, he thought as he incapacitated 10 shinobi by simply touching their vital points. He was not even trying. He began to feel bad about the entire affair as he simply picked up an offender by his neck and threw him like a rag doll into the wall. He was standing in the center of what was probably all the force of Odo, not at all concerned as he countered multiple attacks effortlessly. Ah! He heard a shout from behind him. He could see Kakashi standing with a cut in his shoulder, streaming blood. Oh, he is going to massacre them. He thought grimly and was proved right as Kakashi flashed through his seals and shouted, Chidori! The night was lit by Kakashi's lightning, and Naruto watched as Kakashi cut down every ninja in his way, and waved as the copy ninja made his way to him through the Odo ninja. How are you not tired? Asked Kakashi, panting slightly. He had killed more shinobi than he could count and was quite tired thanks to that Sharingan. It was useful, but it leached too much chakra from his body. Naruto steadied him, and he felt vitality flow from the golden-haired ninja into him, and he felt himself standing straighter. I am a Senju and Uzumaki, Kakashi. My physical energy is not trivial, he said, looking around disappointedly as the Odo shinobi poured on them from all sides with an incoherent yell. I think I have played around enough. I hate to say it, but these shinobi are not worth my time. There is something I have wanted to try for some time now. He clasped his hands in the ox seal, and Kakashi's eyes widened as Naruto flashed through dozens of seals in a matter of an instant. He seemed to be molding chakra with great difficulty, literally forcing it into shape. Katan. Fire? Was not the Shodai traditionally weak in fire affinity? Kakashi had no answer as Naruto shouted, Guka Mekyaku. The night turned bright as the day when waves upon waves of fire flowered out from Naruto's position, literally frying all the ninja who were outside the gates. The fire was so immense that it actually poured into Otogekure from above the walls, and Kakashi could only watch dumbfounded as the offending shinobi were literally vaporized by the intensity of the fire, and he saw Otogekure being set ablaze by the monstrous flames. Naruto did not relent in his attack as he spewed blazing fire that seemed to cleanse the surroundings of Odo of every shinobi except them. Otogekure was now surrounded by a huge ring of blazing fire that towered above even their walls, sometimes pouring inside to cause confusion and death. What was that? He asked shakily, as Naruto let go of his jutsu, panting. The destruction was nearly absolute as he saw no traces of life anywhere around the village, and heard cries of fear inside it. Naruto seemed to be winded as he turned to Kakashi with a satisfied smile. I tried to imitate my old friend, and failed. Fire chakra is very hard to control, he said as he looked around at the fire-ridden landscape. Kakashi nearly doubled over. Failed? I think you succeeded well enough, he said as Otogekure seemed to bar their gates firmly. Kakashi saw sealing jutsu take effect on the walls and gates, and saw with his Sharingan a huge barrier take shape over the village. It would be very hard to force their way in now, for they had gone on the defensive after Naruto's attack. Madara would have melted the walls with this technique and could do it in one seal. I did not even come close to his prowess. Well, my affinity is not fire. And I did take 2 years to perfect this technique, he said disappointedly. Then he brightened considerably. I did take care of our attackers well, did I not? Did you feel Sasuke slip in? He asked happily. Kakashi nodded. But we need to get in as well. Odo is sealed up so no one can get in or out now. That fire technique of yours really frightened them. I guess, said Kakashi dryly, watching the devastation of Naruto's failed technique. He definitely did not want to be on the other end of Naruto's successful ones. Oh, don't worry about that, said Naruto smilingly. He did not seem bothered in the least as he lifted his hand with palm facing upwards. Their seals are very strong, but I wonder if they can stand up to this. To his eyes, a kind of Rasengan seemed to materialize into Naruto's hand with a sound like a whistle. The sound was so keen and sharp that he winced, and his mouth fell open as he saw what Naruto was holding in his hand. It was a shuriken-shaped Rasengan with enormous amounts of wind imbued in it. The chakra shuriken was huge, and it seemed to literally sing as it grew in size. He completed the Rasengan, thought Kakashi, feeling nothing new from Naruto would surprise him anymore. Futon, Rasen Shuriken, yelled Naruto as he threw the jutsu at the walls of Odo. Kakashi watched as the three-bladed Rasen Shuriken cut through the air faster than he could believe, but he could also see the highly reinforced walls of Odo. He must have a wind nature in this life, concluded the copy ninja as the Rasen Shuriken met the walls with an explosive report. The fire from the previous technique was thrown into frenzy as it whipped around the large explosion created by the Rasen Shuriken. He covered his eyes for a moment as the light and fire grew too bright, and opened them a moment later. Naruto grinned at him as he pointed to the section of wall that had been destroyed completely. Shall we visit dear old Orochimaru, Kakashi? Sasuke cleanly slipped in with the shinobi Naruto was destroying by the dozen, his highly honed stealth allowing him to blend in effortlessly with the Odo shinobi. He saw Naruto simply killing the Odo shinobi. It was as if he were not even trying. So this is Hashirama Senju, he thought with awe. The physical strength was nothing short of stunning, he thought, as he cleverly stayed out of Naruto's way. All they did was die at Naruto's hands as the reborn Shodai ripped through their ranks easily. He saw Kakashi throw off his attackers with the Chidori and join Naruto. A shinobi behind him pushed, and Sasuke elbowed him in the gut. He fell gasping and the Uchiha slipped through the ranks and into the gate, roughing his way through several suicidal shinobi. He felt a rising chakra behind him and was just in front of the gate as he saw Naruto shout, "Katan, Guka Mekyaku." He had no time to be surprised as his vision was consumed by white-hot fire. The purple skeleton of Susanoo protected him from the dangerous and immense flames, and he saw every shinobi outside the gates die along with the gatekeepers. This is my chance. He disappeared with a shunshin and just cleared the closing gates, appearing with an Odo-Geikure. Sighing in relief, he substituted his Konoha Hitai 8 with an Odo one and began to search around the gloomy village. He would hardly be out of place as Naruto's attack had put the entire village on the burner. Quite literally. Smirking at his own sense of humor, Sasuke ran through the streets, using the Sharingan to search for familiar chakras. He could see powerful seals being activated to bolster the defense, but he was not concerned. Naruto was who he was, after all. Sure enough, the village shook violently, and when he glanced back he saw a huge hole in the walls. Following the most malicious chakra he was sure belonged to Orochimaru. He ran towards the base as fast as he could. Odo reflected Orochimaru's personality, thought Sasuke as he observed the gloomy fear that pervaded the village. Truly, it was not a village in the real sense of the word, but it was a large garrison. His Sharingan could see the concealed entrance in the ground and made towards it. "Halt! What business do you have here now?" came the voice of two guards. Sasuke turned and observed them. They seemed to be Jounin-level guards of some sort. Their presence only confirmed his suspicions. He did not hesitate as his eyes morphed into Mangekyo. "Amaterasu," The heavenly black flames fell upon the hapless shinobi, a technique that was far beyond their ability to counter. He knew they would be ashes soon enough. Slowly approaching the concealed trapdoor, he began to consider as to how to open it. He ground his teeth in frustration as no solution seemed to hit him. This was supposed to be a clandestine mission. He had to keep as low a profile as possible. His heart clenched as he heard a long drawn-out scream of pain from within the base. He did not want to know what it meant, for he recognized the voice well. The purple flames of Susanoo materialized and formed the skeletal warrior, and raised its sword high in the air. With an enraged yell, Sasuke caused it to cleave the very earth he stood upon into pieces and landed amongst large quantities of rubble. One look around the overly clean and dimly lit place told him where he was, along with another pain-filled scream from his captive sensei. He was here. The hatred of the Uchiha that burnt in his soul flared, and he ran towards the sound of the screams. Those screams were muted by the sounds of the ensuing battle outside, and he saw the entire village falling into a state of upheaval. Soon enough, he could hear only the sounds of powerful jutsu and dying Oto shinobi. If it was the last thing he did, he would make Orochimaru pay for his actions.
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.